Welcome to Lesson 8C, Example Shock Tube Analysis. In this lesson, we'll work out a detailed example problem of a shock tube, and I'll introduce some additional shock tube equations in the process. First, a quick review of our notation and the diagrams we use. We have a long tube separated by a diaphragm with two different gases, one on the left and one on the right. At time t equals 0 plus, this diaphragm bursts, and we assume it instantaneously disappears. This creates a contact surface where everything to the right is gas 1, and everything to the left of the contact surface is gas 4. P4 is higher than P1, so this sudden change of pressure pushes the contact surface to the right and produces a shock that travels down the tube at speed Vs. On the other side of the contact surface, we have the expansion fan, where the pressure rises isentropically from P3 to P4. Here's what this looks like on an XT diagram: the shock, contact surface, and the expansion fan, along with their speeds. And at time T1, we plot this XP diagram. You can see how the pressure changes throughout the shock tube at this instant in time. I also show the four regions, 1, 2, 3, and 4, on both of these diagrams. Now let's do our example. The right or low pressure side has air with these properties, while the high pressure left side has helium as its gas with a higher pressure and here the same temperature but different fluid properties. The shock tube extends 15 meters to the left of the diaphragm, XL, and 10 meters to the right of the diaphragm. We'll deal with what happens to the shock when it hits this end in the next lesson. At t equals 0 or 0 plus, the diaphragm ruptures, starting the whole process of the shock and the expansion fan as we just showed. We want to predict properties and speeds on the left and right sides of the shock tube and plot the XT diagram. I list the assumptions and approximations. We assume ideal gases, isentropic flow except across the shock, so we're not concerned with friction along these walls, for example. The diaphragm instantly disappears at t equals 0. There's no mixing of the two gases across the contact surface. Everything is adiabatic, and the flow at any cross-section is one-dimensional. Now let's solve for the properties. First, I can calculate the speeds of sound. In region 1, A1 is square root of gamma 1 R1 T1. This turns out to be 346.12 meters per second. A4 is the same thing except with subscripts 4, and this turns out to be much larger in the helium, about 10-15 meters per second. And I'm keeping extra digits here to avoid round-off error later. The ideal gas equation tells us that rho 1 is P1 over R1 T1. This gives us a density in region 1 is 1.1687 kilogram per meter cubed. And similarly for region 4, I get a slightly larger density. I'll make a comment here. Make sure you use the correct values of gamma and R, since there's two different gases. Everything to the right of the contact surface is gas 1, so we use gamma 1 and R1. And everything to the left is gas 4 with gamma 4 and R4. Keep this in mind or you'll end up with the wrong values. We also know that P2 equal P3 across the contact surface, and speeds V2, V3, V of the contact surface, and V after the shock are all the same. We can do some algebra, which I'm not going to show. P4 over P1 is 2 gamma 1 ms squared minus gamma 1 minus 1 over gamma 1 plus 1 times the quantity 1 minus gamma 4 minus 1 over gamma 1 plus 1, A1 over A4, ms minus 1 over ms, where ms is the shock Mach number for the moving shock, and this whole thing is raised to the minus 2 gamma 4 over gamma 4 minus 1.
I hope you don't assign that derivation for homework.
I won't, Ned, but I might give it on the midterm exam.
Oh no!
Let's call this equation 1. This is one of those equations, like we've seen many times in this course, that's explicit to calculate this ratio P4 over P1 for a given shock Mach number. And of course we know all these gammas and speeds of sound here as well. But it's implicit to calculate ms for a given pressure ratio P4 over P1. Well, since we know P4 over P1 in this problem, we have this implicit case. So solve this any way you can. Newton's method, trial and error, software, fancy calculator. I used my old favorite, the false position method. And I get ms is 1.8926. Now let's calculate properties across the shock. We know that P2 over P1 for a moving shock was 2 gamma 1 ms squared minus gamma 1 minus 1 over gamma 1 plus 1. And notice that we're using gamma 1 since the shock is entirely in gas 1. Regions 1 and 2 are in gas 1. This pressure ratio turns out to be 4.0121 across this shock. Therefore P2 is P2 over P1 times P1, and P1 was given, so P2 is 401.21 kPa. Also, across the contact surface, P3 must equal P2, so P3 is also known. A little bit more algebra on some of our previous equations, which I'm not going to show, gives us an equation for V2 as 2 over gamma 1 plus 1, A1, ms minus 1 minus ms, which we can solve for V2 directly since we know ms, A1, and gamma 1. I get 393.46 meters per second. But we know that V2 is equal to V3, which is equal to VCS and also VAS. So all of these are 393.46 meters per second. Now let's calculate things across the expansion fan. Recall from a previous lesson that A3 over A4 is 1 minus gamma 4 minus 1 over 2 V3 over A4. Noting that we're using properties of gas 4 here, since the expansion fan goes between regions 3 and 4, which are both in gas 4. I get 0.87147, from which A3 is A3 over A4 times A4, and we had calculated A4 earlier, so A3 is 884.4 meters per second. Now let's use isentropic equations, since as we've stated previously, the expansion fan is approximated as isentropic. So T3 over T4 is A3 over A4 squared. P3 over P4 is A3 over A4 to the 2 gamma 4 over gamma 4 minus 1. And rho 3 over rho 4 is A3 over A4 to the 2 over gamma 4 minus 1. And since we know A3 over A4 is 0.87147, we can calculate P3 over P4, which turns out to be 0.50151. And as a side note, let's try this a different way, namely P3 over P4 is P3 over P1, P1 over P4, but P3 is P2, and P2 over P1 across the shock was previously calculated as 4.0121, and both P4 and P1 were given, namely P4 was 8 times bigger than P1, and this gives us 0.50151, which agrees. Either way, with this ratio, P3 is P3 over P4 times P4, and we get 401.21 kPa as our value for P3. And as a double check, this agrees with P2 that we calculated above, again making me happy. In similar fashion, this density ratio equation can be used to calculate rho 3 as rho 3 over rho 4 times rho 4, and we had calculated rho 4 previously. So rho 3 turns out to be 0.85302 kilogram per meter cubed. Finally, the temperature comes from this equation, and we can get T2 across the shock. Or T3 is simply P3 over R4, rho 3 from the ideal gas law. So T3 is 226.43 K. We can also calculate A3 then. A3 is square root of gamma 4 R4 T3, noting again that region 3 is in gas 4. This gives us 884.41 meters per second. Again, if you can find an alternate way to calculate some of these things, it's a good idea. An alternate form for A3 is square root of gamma 4 P3 over rho 3, and that also gives us the same answer as it must, which is always nice. Or, since we have an equation for A3 over A4, and we know A4, we can calculate A3 that way, again agreeing with our previous values. I like to do these as checks to make sure I didn't make any errors. And of course I encourage you to use software to calculate all these values. Part B is to plot the XT diagram. For the shock, Vs is ms times A1, and that turns out to be 655.03 meters per second. The leading expansion wave, as you may recall, has a speed equal to A4, which is known, and the trailing expansion wave has a wave speed of A3 minus VCS. And we know both of these, so A3 minus VCS is 450.95 meters per second. And note that this is positive, so it moves to the left, which, as we've discussed previously, means that the contact surface is moving subsonically with respect to region 3. Finally, when does the shock hit the end of the shock tube? Well, the equation for x is x equal VST for the shock, and x is XR at the right wall of the shock tube. So TR is the time for the shock to hit the wall, which will be XR over VS, or 10 meters over 655.03 meters per second. TR turns out to be 0.015267 seconds, or 15.2 milliseconds. This whole experiment, up to the point where the shock hits the end of the shock tube, lasts only about 15 milliseconds. Finally, we plot the XT diagram. I used Excel to do this. And here is my final plot, where we see the shock with speed Vs, the contact surface with speed VCS, the trailing wave of the expansion fan with speed A3 minus VCS, and the leading wave of the expansion fan at speed A4. The equation that I used for this line is x equal minus A4 times t, and for the trailing wave, x equal negative A3 minus VCS times time. These have negative signs because the waves are moving to the left. And then I just arbitrarily filled in a couple more waves. Completing this, the contact surface equation is x equal VCST, and the shock equation is x equal VST. These are the equations I used to generate these lines. One comment here, the speed of sound A4 in gas 4 is larger than the speed of the shock in gas 1. That may be surprising, since this is moving at the speed of sound, whereas this is supersonic. Well, that's because for helium, R4 is large, and gamma 4 is also large compared to air, and so A4 being square root of gamma 4 R4 T4 is large, even though T4 and T1 are the same in this problem. So it turns out that the leading wave of the expansion fan hits the left wall before the shock hits the right wall, and you can see that this point is a little bit higher than this point, but they both hit their respective walls at approximately the same time. In the next lesson, we'll examine what happens to this shock when it reflects off of this wall. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. 1, 2, 3. That's all there is to it.